Hey, what's good, everybody? This be your boy Miller, aka Miller the One, guys. And today, I just dropped this new thing that I'm gonna start doing with survivors, telling the story. So, guys, just sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. And I'll see you on the other side.
Chapter 1: The First Survivor. The world had long since fallen to ruin, its cities left in smoldering decay, its streets filled with the relentless moans of the undead. Civilization had collapsed under the weight of the infection, leaving only scattered remnants of humanity fighting to exist. The lone survivor had no name that mattered anymore. Who he was before the world ended was of no significance. The only thing that mattered now was survival. Each day, he wandered the crumbling streets, his trusty blade strapped to his back, searching for signs of life. He had once heard rumors of others who had made it through the chaos, whispers carried by scavengers and the desperate, but he had yet to find anyone. The loneliness gnawed at him, but he could not afford to dwell on it. Out here, sentimentality could get you killed. His journey had taken him through abandoned towns and shattered highways, where the remnants of what once was lay frozen in time. Cars sat rusted and broken, their windshields splattered with dried blood. Homes were left open, their insides ransacked, their silence more chilling than any scream. The bodies of the dead, some reanimated, some truly lifeless, lined the roads, the air thick with the stench of rot. Days of peril. The first night he had spent in the outskirts of a small town had nearly been his last. He had taken refuge in a gas station, its shelves already stripped bare by scavengers before him. He had locked the doors, barricaded the windows, and laid down in the stockroom, exhaustion weighing heavy on him. Sleep had barely begun to take him when the scratching started. At first, it was faint, a light scraping against the glass, the shuffle of feet just outside. Then came the groans. He sat up, gripping his blade, his pulse quickening. He knew better than to move too soon. Instead, he listened, counting the voices of the dead beyond the walls. There were at least 4, maybe 5. He held his breath, hoping they would pass, but the scratching grew more insistent. One of them was testing the door. Then, crash. Glass shattered somewhere in the building, followed by the unmistakable sound of something large tumbling to the floor. They were inside. He moved fast, rising to his feet in a fluid motion, his blade unsheathed in an instant. The stockroom door was thin, too thin to hold them off for long. He needed an escape. His eyes darted to the ceiling. There, a maintenance hatch. Without hesitation, he climbed onto a stack of crates and pushed against the metal covering. It groaned in protest before finally giving way. As he hoisted himself up, the stockroom door burst open, and they poured in. Hollow eyes, gnashing teeth, clawing hands. The scent of decay overwhelmed him. He pulled himself through just in time, the weight of the undead slamming against the shelving beneath him. He crawled through the vents, his breath held tight in his chest until he found another opening. A second later, he was on the roof, staring down at the creatures swarming below. They reached for him, but they could not climb. He was safe. For now. It took hours for them to lose interest, to shuffle away into the darkness. He spent the night atop the gas station, blade in hand, the cold biting through his jacket. By dawn, he was gone. The road to nowhere. The next few days blurred together in a haze of hunger and exhaustion. He scavenged what little he could, canned goods, bottled water, even a half-eaten protein bar that had somehow avoided spoilage. He knew he couldn't keep wandering without a goal. He needed direction. On the 5th day, he found himself in what was once a bustling city. Now it was a graveyard. He walked cautiously, keeping to the shadows, avoiding the main streets where the undead lurked in greater numbers. Every sound was a potential threat, a gust of wind rattling a loose sign, the distant crash of something falling in an unseen alley, the sharp echo of a gunshot, far off but unmistakable. Gunshot. That meant someone was still alive. He moved toward the sound, keeping low, his heartbeat quickening. As he turned a corner, he spotted a convenience store with its front window shattered. Inside, a man lay on the floor, a revolver in his grip, blood pooling around him. A fresh wound gaped in his stomach. The survivor hesitated. Approaching the injured was a risk. A desperate man was just as dangerous as the undead. The man groaned, his head turning slightly. He was alive, barely. The survivor knelt beside him, keeping a wary hand on his blade. "Who did this?" he asked, his voice rough from days of silence. The man's eyes fluttered open. clouded with pain. He struggled to speak, his lips trembling. Raiders, he whispered. Took everything. Raiders. The survivor clenched his jaw. He had heard of them before, bands of men who had abandoned all morality, preying on the weak, taking what they wanted without remorse. They were worse than the undead. The man's breath grew shallow. His grip on the revolver loosened. Help! But there was nothing to be done. The wound was too deep, the blood loss too great. The survivor hesitated for only a moment before gripping the revolver and pulling it from the dying man's grasp. He checked the chamber. 2 bullets left. Not much, but enough. The man exhaled one final breath, his body falling still. The survivor stood, pocketing the revolver. He had no time for grief. The raiders were out there, and he would not be their next victim. Shadows in the dark. That night, he avoided sleeping in the open. He found shelter in an old apartment complex, choosing a room on the 2nd floor where he could hear anything approaching. He barricaded the door and sat by the window, watching the streets below. And then, he saw them. 4 figures, moving through the darkness, their silhouettes barely visible against the ruins. They were armed, rifles slung over their backs, machetes hanging from their belts. They moved with purpose, scanning the streets, searching. Raiders. The survivor remained still, his breath steady. He had no desire for confrontation, not yet. He could wait them out, let them pass. Then one of them stopped. The man turned his head as if sensing something. He looked directly at the apartment complex. The survivor didn't move. The raider lingered for a moment, then motioned to the others. They moved on. Only when they were gone did he exhale. Tomorrow he would move again. He had survived another day. But he still hadn't found what he was searching for, and he wasn't giving up yet.